Welcome to Mindless Entertainment. My name is Jesse Milestone, and we're going in for another patron suggestion today. Today's suggestion comes from Charles Anderson, who was on board with the let's hear how Jesse would fix Star Wars moving forward, but then also wanted to know, because obviously, I didn't like the way Han Solo went out, he wanted to know how I would have handled Han Solo's character. What was Han Solo up to between the movies? Where is that arc going? Where are the things going, moving forwards there? So let's talk about that. Because, of course, the whole thing is he's going to die because that's what Harrison Ford wanted. So how do I handle that in a way that I feel is respectful? Okay, so this is going to touch on some of, if I was in control of the trilogy, right, the sequel trilogy, what would it have looked like? Well, I wouldn't have started it quite so long after. Definitely years after, definitely a long enough time that they have, Luke and Leia, or Han and Leia, sorry, bad Freudian slip there, that Han and Leia have a few children who are, teenaged of that, in Jedi training, etc. I think that it would be, I want to see Luke train the Jedi, right? And now, so I don't want no First Order bullshit. You don't have to have this traditional monolith that they're fighting. That was the sort of beautiful part of the prequels versus the sequels. One of the good things that the prequels did, it was a different type of struggle. It wasn't, the good guys versus the bad guys. It was the system crumbling from within and corrupting, and therefore setting up now your good guys versus your bad guys. Great, so we had our epic good-bad struggle, and that's ended. What do we go from there? Now we have the ashes of the good, right? The destruction of the Death Star and the Emperor is the end of the Empire as we know it, but it doesn't mean all of the people who are loyal to the Empire are just gone. Right? It doesn't mean they all go away. So now you're dealing with the Rebel Alliance, who has to set up a new government, and now deal with hunting, getting rid of the people who are still sympathetic to the Empire and who want to, bring the Empire back and stuff like that. And as well as, dealing with Luke, training a new crop of Jedi. So I think you have a lot of potential there, and I'd use the hell out of the original characters if I could have, to the extent that I could have. I think you could have a really fun timeline in there with Lando is totally suited to becoming a politician. How does Lando, little side story there of Lando now fitting in to the new structure, the new governmental structure, whatever's going on there, right? Luke and Leia and Han raising their children, well, I keep doing that, it just feels so natural to say Luke and Leia. All right, Luke and Han raising their children, while also, obviously, Leia's going to be involved in the political side of things, as well as in the, probably still in the fighting side of things, and Han, balancing we still want to be involved in fixing the world while raising these children, who are, probably also off learning how to be Jedi, so we get to see Luke train, and there's so much material, that's an entire movie just, setting that stuff up. So we don't just want to watch this all, these banal trials and tribulations of daily life. So what would be fun for me in Star Wars? Let's have Sith are evil, right? They're definitely evil, but they're not crazy psychopathic kinds of we just go and we just have these real, I don't know, they do have fucked up ideas about the world, but there's an order to it. There's a very, very clear order. They're not chaotic people. There's a very clear, methodical order to how the Sith operate. I think it'd be fun to have, and maybe he has dark side powers, but probably does have some dark side powers, but someone who's totally raw in dark force energy, right? Like if Kylo Ren was Cable from Deadpool 2, that sort of, all right, that's kind of raw power and energy and desire to do the work of the dark side while being sort of a hard and chiseled badass kind of little off your rocker, seen some shit, been through some shit kind of dude. That would be an interesting villain for me, who then sort of rises up, and they haven't quite confronted him yet in these movies. Our main characters, our heroes, haven't necessarily directly confronted that threat that's out there. They sort of are hearing about it, are knowing about it. And so that brings me to, okay, so you have this sort of bubbling turmoil rising, and the way Han can go out, I think, is that this threat, this guy, whoever he is suddenly very, very real and is threatening his family, and that he dies, gives his life maybe so that Leia and his children can escape from somewhere and, carry on fighting, etc. That is a Han Solo death. That's the pinnacle of that character development for him. Going from a person who only cares about himself, who's only out to save his own skin, to being a person who's willing to give his life to protect the things he loves. That, to me, would be a Han Solo-esque death, something that I could totally get behind. And now you have a whole serious setup of how do we defeat this guy, and the people rallying behind him now that he's very, like, more out in the open, and Luke dealing with, okay, we're gonna need Force users in this fight, but they're young. Now you really turn the focus on the children here, on Luke and Leia's God damn it, on Luke and Han's children. That's right, people. On Leia and Han's children, of course, going to be this instrumental thing, and then you can have Luke and Leia have these push-pull feelings. Obviously, they want to protect their children, and of course, this is the memory of their beloved Han Solo now, but at the same time, understanding that maybe these children are very, very powerful in the Force, and you can even have, like, that Reyes kind of thing of, like, whoa, crazy powerful, like, oh my god, you can do things maybe you shouldn't be able to do, but have that struggle. How do you harness it? How do you wield it? How do we almost have, like, an Anakin-esque kind of really, really good at the Force, really, really, like, kind of all over the place, angsty teenager, but let's get it right this time, rather than letting him fall to the dark side and getting seduced by the dark side. What does it look like now if we save this kid's, soul and have him continue on to the light? And doing that and honoring Han's memory and legacy somewhere in the process of that, and being the one to ultimately kill Mr. Bad Guy, who I've thought up but haven't named, and avenge his father's death. That's my total, haven't really sunk a lot of time into it, but what's bouncing around in my skull of this is the Star Wars I would have written, I would have wanted to see, and that's how I would have wanted Han to go out, right? Ultimate, and sacrificing himself for the people he loves, and that's for me even more important than sacrificing himself for a cause, right? Because that's the whole thing with Han, is when we saw him, aside from Chewbacca, there weren't those people in his life. He didn't have any of those people in his life. So now to do that, to protect a family and protect a legacy, I feel like is such a great evolution of who he was and who he is. So that's it. What do you think? Let me know. I've heard a lot of your great ideas for what you guys would have done or would have liked to see. Keep them coming. I'm always interested to hear how you would have handled it, if you like the way I'm handling it, thoughts, criticisms, whatever. So when I get to make my own fan version, we'll get it right, guys. Anyway, if you want to be like Charles and suggest content for my videos, you can join my Patreon. Super fun, super great. Also, if you want to join the Mindless Entertainment Army, the shirts are here, so get them. And yeah, I will talk to you guys tomorrow.